Hi everybody!
Hello!
We're back again this week. We're going to talk about the beginning of our journey, mainly how we started and then where we went to.
A little bit of where we were before we started. We're going to talk about what our life was kind of like when we made this decision to start traveling. And
Back in the fall of 2016, we made a decision at some point. We kind of were tired of you were tired of your job. So you were ready to be done with that, and we were ready to move on, and we were going to just move out into the country. I think that's how we started.
yeah, I think life got a little stale, so we were just trying to figure out how we were going to make a change that would be worthwhile and enough to maybe satisfy us. And yeah, like you said, we were looking at like moving, maybe getting acreage. At the time, we lived across the street from a lake, so we didn't have acreage, but we had a lake. So thought maybe switching that up and getting, not necessarily away from water, but more acreage, maybe that would make us happy. But we also had a camper at the time that we were sometimes using, but mostly renting out.
I started talking to the IT department at my company to try to come up with a plan so that we could have internet, or what kind of internet we needed wherever we moved to. And somehow that morphed into, hey, if we start going to campgrounds instead of living in the middle of nowhere, we could always have internet. So from there, it just kind of snowballed into what we ended up doing. January, we went down to the Grand Rapids RV show. We started looking pretty closely at RVs. I think at the time we thought maybe we were going to get something a lot less than we did.
I don't think we knew what we were completely doing at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You knew that you didn't care for travel trailers because you can feel them on the truck. Fifth wheels are attached physically to the truck, so like in the bed, so it's a much more stable connection and you feel less of it when you're driving.
And we knew we were going to be putting thousands of miles on this thing, so we wanted something stable. And I think still at that time we were debating if we should get a motorhome or not.
Right.
And inevitably we decided, let's get a bigger pickup truck. Cause
you were debating the motorhome.
Okay. There was no debate with you?
Not really. The financial situation we were in didn't really lend itself to buying a house on wheels.
We bought a house on wheels. You mean a house on wheels with a motor?
Yeah.
You would rather have a house on wheels.
Because also with a motorhome,
a vehicle.
In order for it to be practical, you need to buy a second vehicle that you're going to tow so that you can actually go to the grocery store and not have a bus. So at that point, you're looking at a couple $100,000 for the motorhome, and then an additional vehicle on top of that, and it just financially didn't make sense for us. And generally, a fifth wheel is going to be cheaper, and we should really get a nice one than a motorhome.
So I think in April of 2017, we ended up going down, and we finally picked out the camper we were going to buy, which was a Alpine fifth wheel built by Keystone.
We actually went down there and didn't find anything we liked. And then we came back home and looked online at we didn't want to be overly long, but we wanted to make sure that we had everything that we needed to live and work out of it. So yeah, we went down to the dealer.
We went to a few dealers.
Yeah, and we looked around and we just couldn't really find anything. So we went online to the major manufacturers and we looked at floor plans, and finally we found one that we liked, and we strategically called a dealer that we knew it's a wholesale dealer, so it was going to be a better price for us, and asked them if they could order it in, and they did.
So we did that, and then we did something similar with our truck. We decided that we needed to have a 1-ton truck, but a non-dually version of a 1-ton. So when you look at the spec, say 3/4 ton, we probably would have been able to tow the camper. However, it would have been, right at the limit.
Right, and at that point, you're kind of negating that whole reason of going to the fifth wheel, because the closer you get to a truck's limit, the more squirrely everything is going to be. So you want that truck to be well capable of commanding the load, if you will.
So really the major difference in components, as far as the truck goes, the difference between a 3/4 ton Chevy and a 1-ton Chevy is almost nothing. I think they're built on the same frame. I think they even have the same engine. The only difference is they give you a turbocharger, which really, we hear that thing kick in when we're going up steep hills and stuff, and that thing is great. and then we get one additional leaf spring in the rear
I think it
end.
might be 2.
Well, at least
1 or 2.
whatever it is, but
It's
that
a little
really
stiffer.
helps with the pin weight.
Yeah.
So all this while, we were working on remodeling our house so that we could sell it. We basically flipped it, and I mean, we
Did a lot.
did a pretty extensive, almost top to bottom, complete remodel of the house. It was a 3-bed, 1-bath house, and we ended up converting it to a 3-bed, 2-bath house.
When they had built it, they had used drywall that was too thin on the ceiling. So we also,
Replaced the entire ceiling in the living area and the main areas because it had pillowed and was popping the screws and stuff. So because of that, we had to strip all of the insulation out of the attic, and then we had that all put back in. But at the end, it was a really good, solid product, I think.
yeah, all new floors. At least not in the kitchen. The kitchen we tried not to touch.
The kitchen had been remodeled probably a couple years prior to us purchasing
Right.
it.
And then, yeah, we split that 1 bath. We were able to split it into a full bath for the house and then a 3/4 for the master. So it is actually a master suite. And then new paint, new floors, new trim throughout. I think the trim ended up being more of a project than we thought it was going to be.
You did a lot of work on that.
It was a lot.
But yeah, in the end, that kind of really helped us. That helped set us up to be able to do this too when we sold that.
Definitely had payments on both the truck and the camper, but the profit from the house made those payments doable. So also at the same time, we already had 2 vehicles and a camper that we had to figure out what to do with.
So the really unfortunate fact of the matter was we had just started a new lease on a Chevy Volt, and we loved that car.
Oh, it was so amazing. That car was the first thing that we ordered that actually had like nicer features and everything. And it was ordered for us because we worked with an awesome dealership that was willing to do that. They put it in their pool car lot for a little bit, and then they were able to give it to us on lease. And it was an amazing car.
But we only ended up having it for 9 months, and then we had to do a lease buyout on it. We advertised it on a lease transfer site, basically statewide, and it ended up being that somebody from our hometown of Cadillac at the time ended up with it. So that was a little ironic. And then we also had a half-ton truck, and that worked out just fine for what we needed it for. It was only a V6 though, so it did good enough.
It was exactly what we needed at the time. When we decided to do our life change, there's no way.
No.
So it was a V6 that drops to 4 cylinders when you're just cruising. So like when we were doing light work with the house and everything, it was perfect.
So we eventually were able to, through Craigslist or RV Trader, we got our camper sold. So a guy came and bought that from us. And then, like we said, the Volt, we did the lease transfer on. And then the truck, we went down and traded it in
For the new one.
for the new one. We got the 5th wheel hitch when we were still in Cadillac, drove it down, and that day when we picked up the new truck, we transferred the trailer hitch from one truck bed to the other, installed it, and then drove the 20 miles from the dealership,
Yeah.
the car dealership, to the RV dealership. So I think when we got to the RV dealership, there was probably like 26 miles on our truck, and then we picked up the camper.
I'm pretty sure that's not how you're supposed to break it in, but it's done fine. It's okay, I swear.
And then we drove it the 2 hours home. And I think maybe the following weekend we went over to Manistee for what we'll call our first shakedown.
Somehow when we decide to do life events, everybody in our
Else.
life also decides to do life-changing events. So I think we were doing this, your parents were moving, granted up the block, and then my parents were
Moving also.
also moving. Whatever.
But in the end, it worked out pretty well for us because we were able to take a lot of our belongings, we'll call them our inside stuff, went to my parents' basement, their new basement, and then a lot of our outside stuff went to your parents'
right,
barn.
kind of claimed a section of each of their new places.
But And we're grateful for that because it worked out well for us because we didn't have to pay that additional monthly fee for a storage unit.
Right. Which again would not have made that first year feasible. Yeah, but we did that shakedown run to Manistee to help them with their moving. Do you want to tell them about that?
No, we don't need to discuss that.
Curtis figured out how high the camper really is by driving it through a couple trees
Just some branches.
and scratched it up on its first run.
There was only one scratch and it buffed out.
It did not buff out. He just can't get on the roof, so he can't see them.
Okay. So after the little trip to Manistee, we went back to Cadillac, and I think we were there, I don't know, another couple weeks. We were at the point where we were ready to get our house listed, so we were...
Well, we needed to.
We had
We were
to.
not ready.
Yeah, we were not ready. But we did a really hard push. I think we ended up delaying our first real trip a day or two just because we had too much to get done.
Yeah, I think at that point I was done working already. And it was pretty much like,
Your life?
it was. I didn't sleep. There were days where I'd go till 2 or 3 in the morning. You still worked, so you went to bed.
But I had some midnight or later nights and then got up early to go to work.
And then luckily your parents came and helped out too. So even though they had stuff going on, they took the time to help us out.
And your stepdad, I think, came over a little bit too.
I think so. My memories flash between flooring and trim and tiling.
I did most of the flooring. I remember I took one day off of work and did all the flooring. That was a long day. Pretty sure I spent a week at the chiropractor after that. So our first real trip was planned out probably a few months in advance because we knew that we were going to go to the Michigan Tech alumni reunion. This was the first time we had gone back for a reunion, but the main reason was that they were featuring the pep band this year. So we were both in the pep band, and that's how we ended up meeting, and it was a great time.
It was a super great time to get to see everybody again.
So we spent a lot of time up there, so we kind of went to a lot of places that we loved. I mean,
it still feels like home, so it felt like going back home.
Dining establishments, those types of things. And then we took a trip up the Keweenaw Peninsula while we were there, and we did a few extra things that we had never done before. We went and found a couple more waterfalls. We also explored a little bit more of the UP while we were there. I think we went over to Marquette one day.
Like when you're going to school, your number one priority is not necessarily exploring. So yeah, there's lots of things that we didn't get to do while we were there. And I think we still have to go back and do some of them. But
So something we should probably point out was that was the first real long trip we took with the camper. That was probably, a 7-hour drive?
yeah,
And I think we learned really quickly that we do not enjoy driving for that long.
no, there's definitely a lot of added stress when driving with a camper that's 35 feet long. And I don't think there's a way to avoid it. And after 3 years, maybe other people can get comfortable with it, but I was never able to relax while driving it. So we kind of put a cap of 4 hours, maybe push it to 6 sometimes, but not much more than that.
And then after we left Houghton, we went back to Manistee for a little bit. I think we ended up spending close to a month there. The main reason was we didn't want the camper in Cadillac by our house where we were trying to sell it. So basically we vacated the house in Cadillac. We went over a few times just to mow the grass and stuff, but that way it was easy to do showings and they were doing that.
Is that when you and your dad did dueling lawnmowers?
I think so, yeah.
It was dueling lawnmowers. It was pretty comical for me.
We have not been to too many weddings, but for some reason we had 3 that year.
Yes, it was the fall of weddings, wasn't it? And you were best man.
I was the best man for the first one.
I was in one.
You were the bridesmaid for the second one, and then we just went to the third one.
Yeah.
So we went down and spent our first time in Grand Rapids with it. We stayed at, the name of the campground is Steamboat Park Campground. It's right by the Grand Lady.
I don't know. It's the boat that runs up the Grand River. If you're from Grand Rapids, it's a thing. Because like you said, I kind of grew up over there. Granite Rapids has always been like this busy metropolitan area, but that park is almost dead silent, despite the fact it's like down the river from the highway.
I know, it's like barely on the outskirts of town, and it's just like, here's this little nature area right there.
It's great.
So from there we went up to actually Alpena, so that's where we are right now. I've worked for the same company now for 7.5 years or so. They were the ones that basically allowed us to do this thing, so I really appreciate that. We came up here just for 2 weeks.
Again, this first year for sure, finances were a big concern, so we stayed at the cheapest park in the area, which was not a full hookup, and somehow we became infested with ladybugs.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. And those ladybugs were around for like a year.
Yeah.
Every time, even when it was cold out, we'd get just a little bit of a warm up or something, and there'd just be random ladybugs coming in the camper.
I love the ceiling, so that wasn't great.
That also kind of made us realize that if we go anywhere for more than a day, we need to have a sewer, because you take way too long of showers.
It's true. I'm not gonna hide that fact.
So we ended up staying in Alpena for just shy of 2 weeks. The last Friday when we left was the day we were able to close on our house. So we drove back down to Cadillac, closed I think in the afternoon, and then I think we spent that weekend. We had a few more things to pack up.
Yeah, we
still
spent
had
it in the driveway.
Yeah, we still had some furniture and stuff we needed to take to storage, and a few odds and ends like that type of thing that we left for staging.
Yeah.
And then we ended up leaving.
One more wedding.
Oh yeah, the wedding was
One
there
more
was
wedding.
a wedding that Saturday.
Yep.
So then we stayed Sunday, and then we left for the real trip on Monday.
Morning. Very rainy morning.
Last thing we want to quick talk about today is the reason we decided to go west. I think initially when we started thinking of doing this whole trip, the intent was to basically be a snowbird and go to Florida. That's what everybody from Michigan seems to do.
Well, that might have been your idea.
Well, we ended up doing it eventually, but we decided that, similarly along the lines of the Michigan Tech thing, our hockey team was invited to a hockey tournament in Las Vegas. And because we had the ability to be wherever we wanted to be, we decided that west was going to be our first trip. So I think that's what we're going to end with today. Next week we're going to talk about where we went first, and we'll see how far we get.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 3 years of stuff, so.
It's going to be a while. Strap in.
See you next time.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.